On New Year's Eve of 2011, what were your goals for 2012? Did you meet them? Plans always change, and that's not necessarily always bad. So I thought it would be interesting to go over what I had wanted to do for 2012, and what I actually did.
The goals I had for 2012 were finishing Moosader.com's redevelopment. I got this done, and this is the page that is currently up at Moosader.com. Create basic tutorials for Allegro, SDL, and SFML. I didn't get around to doing this, but I hope to in 2013. XNA and Android development. I pretty much decided to leave XNA alone once it seemed like Microsoft wanted to get rid of it. I did some Android development earlier on this year, and then again just recently with my Jam and Ram game and this Legacy of Xmas game. Expand OpenArt. I did in fact expand OpenArt, and I renamed it to an Artsader. The page styling is similar to Moosader.com now, and it has all the old assets that it used to, but it still needs a lot of work and I haven't gotten around to it. Create some game development art tools. I wanted to make a few art building tools for the Artsader website, but I never got around to it, partially because I'm not super familiar with any UI libraries, and I also wanted a way to host it on the website itself rather than only as a downloadable program. Surprise, surprise, I know about libgdx now. Whether I work on some game development tools or not, however, depends on my priorities and schedule during 2013. And work on some group projects. I failed at this as far as game development goes. Of course I've worked with teams at work, I just haven't done much with other people online beyond brainstorming. So those were my goals for 2012. It's funny how if I just sit around and wonder about it, it doesn't seem like I did much, but once I write it down on paper, it seems like I did a lot more. Here's what I did in 2012. Moosader.com launch. I did eventually get Moosader.com up and running using ASP.NET MVC, and that's really about it. Artsader launch. I restyled and launched the new Artsader website, which was formerly OpenArt. I changed the name of the website so people wouldn't get it confused with Open Game Art. I had developed the site originally just as a hobby without doing any research into what was out there. Organizing competitions. In 2012, we had 3 competitions: text-based games, procedurally and randomly generated elements, and play as a villain / one-button or mouse-only controls. KC Noir development. I worked on KC Noir, a text adventure that was inspired by games like Zork and also LA Noire. In it, you're trying to solve a murder. You go around Kansas City looking for clues and interrogating people. It was a lot of fun to make, with C++ and Lua, and I would love to work on it more, but it just seems like nobody wants to play text adventures. Jam and Ram development. For the Play as a Villain competition, I made a one-button shmup game. It's meant for 2 players with 1 button per person, but I had to add some crappy AI in there to make sure people played fairly, rather than playing both roles with 2 buttons and voting based on that. Maker Faire. At the Kansas City Maker Faire this year, I had a booth about where to begin with making video games. It was a lot of fun, and I got to see people play Rarynth in person for the first time. Teaching classes. In August and November, I taught some beginning programmer classes at a local hackerspace. I taught kids and adults about Love 2D with Lua, beginning C++, and beginning web development. I might make these into tutorials in the future, but for now I just have written guides for them on my GitHub. Google Plus group discussions. I've been trying to set up some Google Plus group discussions using the on-air feature of the Google Plus Hangouts. We've only had a few so far, but hopefully it will just keep getting better as time goes on. If you're interested in joining us, make sure to add me to your circles on Google Plus. If you add me, I'll add you, and if you're in my circles, you can see the Hangout invites. Legacy of Xmas development. On a whim, I decided to work on an action RPG inspired by old shareware games, and how they used to have Christmas versions. I didn't get it done before Christmas, but I'll continue working on it and developing that framework to possibly make other small action RPGs in the future. Learning Python. I've spent some time on and off learning Python, since everybody who uses it seems to be really infatuated with it. I haven't figured out why it's so awesome yet, but I'll probably keep up with it since I may want to learn Django. Learning Java. Along with doing Android development, I've also been learning more about Java. Yes, it's been really frustrating at times, and I still prefer C++, but it's just another tool, and libgdx is quite an awesome library. Learning Esperanto. I've been trying to look for non-computer hobbies to work on when I feel burnt out on computers. I enjoy learning languages, so I spent some time learning Esperanto this year. However, in 2013 I may work towards learning Spanish instead. quit my job and registered for school. I made the decision late in 2012 to quit my job and go back to school. It's been somewhat of an identity crisis for me to leave my profession, but I was not happy even though I had a good job. The phrase goes, do what you love and you will never work a day in your life. I assumed this meant I should be a programmer as a profession since I love programming. But programming as a job just made me feel burnt out overall. I think programming is a very personal, creative, and fulfilling hobby for me, but writing business software or search aggregation websites just isn't fulfilling. And it makes it harder to enjoy one of my longest held hobbies. So, I'm gonna go with, do what you love second most, and keep your main passion all for yourself. And for me, I believe that's teaching. I haven't taught in a public school, but with every job I've had, I've always looked back at that math tutoring job I had in community college, and ultimately always thought, that was so much more rewarding. So, I'm going back to school for a master's in curriculum and education for secondary education math, and I don't intend to be pigeonholed into any one role. I crave variety in what I do, and being trained in software engineering, teaching, and curriculum writing sounds ideal for me, so wish me luck. Lastly, I would like to thank everybody who is part of the Moosader community and everybody who watches my videos on YouTube. I really appreciate the community that has been built, both with the game developers on YouTube and my own IRC channel and forums. It's a really great, amazing thing, and I'm glad to have met everybody who I have.